All right, I'm liking what's happening here, but this is just 2 layers. And the requirements is to have 5 or more layers, because with 5 or more layers, you're forced to make it into something original. So as I build it up, I might decide to edit certain things out just by looping around them with my lasso and deleting. And another way that I like to work, I was showing you this before, is I can use the magic wand with contiguous checked to find things like these boots and select inside them, or this holster, or this arm. And then what I can do is go to other layers and move that selection and delete that from the other layers, so that those boots are always clear through every layer. I can hear your silent oohs and ahs. They give me encouragement. So that's a way to kind of clean this up so it looks more interesting. Remember, this is an exercise, so you can get full credit for it even if it doesn't look super resolved or interesting. It's not an art assignment yet. It's just learning the tools. But we like things that look interesting, so we might as well try. Interesting stuff is interesting. Well, I like that it looks like there's a Godzilla with a cowboy hat. That's accidental, but it's cool. I can get all the little stripes in his boxer shorts, clear those out. His mustache. Nope, his mustache is open, so that's harder. So you can move selections between layers and kind of clear them out. See what I'm doing there? Clearing them out. And then, of course, you can always just freeball it, make shapes and delete from certain layers. But I like these cartoon jumbles just for my own taste best when they have a lot of variety of line weight, a lot of different dynamic angles. And so I can mostly get what I want just by selectively erasing out certain marks. And because you're stealing all the lines from something that's conceptually related, that can make the whole thing kind of have a similar personality. And that's the goal. All right, there's more I could definitely do. And I could keep working, and each time I make a choice, the more thought I put into it, the better. I'll just make this last little choice. I'll take this line out of that cowboy hat. Just got to find what layer it's from. That's not it. Let's see, is it this one? Yes. And then just delete. And now I've got all 5 layers combined. You guys agree? Maybe I want to take this circle out right here. Just from that bottom. And I can use the eyeball to find what layer and then delete it from that. And this can just go on and on, endlessly kind of refining and cleaning up. But at some point, the deadline is there. So what I need to do is turn this in, as we all need to. And what I'm going to do to turn it in is to first save it as a PSD for myself. We always save as a PSD for ourselves. That PSD is a working file format. It has all those layers. So you can save as PSD. It will go to your desktop or to your downloads. And this I can use to replace the one I have in exercise 1, right? The end of class. But now I also need to save it as a way that can go onto Canvas. This is what's called an online file format. So this is working because if I want to make changes, I need the PSD for all the layers. And this is online. This is because only flattened, compressed images can be put online and visible. So to do that, I have to say File, export as either a PNG or a JPEG. I'm just going to do a JPEG for now. And a JPEG is going to fill in all that empty pixel space with white. And it's going to flatten it all into one image. It saves it to the downloads. I'm going to move that to the desktop. Remember, function F11 can clear you to the desktop. I'm going to mark it as orange. And I can check it just by double clicking on it. It will open up in preview. And that's a good way to see if there's like little debris. And you see there's a little bit of debris on it that I want to clean up that I didn't notice before. There's also little white pixels at the edges. So what can I do to really clean it up as a whole now? I'm going to show you an amazing trick that I've never seen in any Photoshop video. I've never had it in any class. I've never seen it in any Photoshop book. And yet every professional seems to know it because it's so helpful. And what that trick is in Photopea, you select all your layers that you like. So you can do that individually by holding down Command and clicking on each layer until they're all highlighted. Or you can just click on the top layer, hold down Shift, and click on the bottom layer. Select all the ones you like. Then you hold down Option. And while you're holding down Option, you go to Layer, Merge Layers. Now, if you don't hold down Option and you do this, it will collapse all the layers into one, which means you lose all that control. But if you hold down Option while you do it, it does this amazing magical thing, which is pretty simple, which is it combines them all onto a layer on top of all your individual layers, which is the way you want to do it. This gives you one place where you can simply select all the white pixels and make sure they're gone from everywhere and delete. And one place where you can just clean up your edges and delete from every layer all at once because they're all combined into one place. And now I have my finished image. And now I'm going to save it again as a PSD. But instead of saying save as a PSD, I'm just going to say File Save. Because then it will overwrite the PSD I last saved. And if I'm not at all clear on that, you want to save as a PSD, label it, know where it's going to save, and you can replace your old one with the new one. Then I need to save it as an online file format. So I'm going to export it as a JPEG. Save it. That JPEG is not going to go to the desktop. It's going to go to downloads. I have to bring it onto the desktop, and it's going to replace my older one that had that mess. So now when I check it, it looks nice and clean. The other way I can save it to put it online is to not have it filled in with white. If I have no background on it, I can say File, Export as a PNG. That is another type of online file format. You can save it as either one and still get credit. It will still go onto Canvas. If I save it as a PNG, it will go to my downloads. It will have the same name, but it will have a different tag at the end. Those are different digital formats. You can't change that tag at the end, or you don't want to, otherwise it won't read them correctly. I'm going to mark this as red. It's kind of an optional thing. Now, what's the difference between them? My JPEG has a white background where there are no pixels. My PNG will have no pixels, and it will float on a middle gray background. So PNGs are for transparent files. JPEGs will always fill with 100% opaque pixels the entirety of the pixel grid. But PNGs, which take a little bit more memory, you're able to have empty space and low opacity pixels within the pixel grid. Now to upload it, what do? I follow the directions. I go to the end of the assignment. I click on reply, and I start by writing my name. Even though my name is in Canvas, some of us don't go by the name that's in Canvas. So we just want to get in the habit of labeling our posts with our name. And then all we need to get credit for this exercise is to put our JPEG or PNG of our composited line art up to canvas. And then, like many have already done, just like we did before, we want to resize it to fit under our name. That doesn't reduce the quality of the image, it just makes it fit within the canvas architecture. And so even though this was a PNG and it has an empty background, the canvas discussion board is white, so it shows up as black lines on a white background. All right. So before we do our presentation critique, we're going to do some of the finishing extras. This is optional and not required. But once you have your image as black line art all combined, especially if you made a merged copy of it as one layer, it's really easy to replace that black with color and texture. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my Google image search for the illustrator of my favorite children's book. And I'm going to go to the tools and I'm going to look for large images. So images, tools, large. But this time I only want to look at stuff that's color, right? Any color, any type, but they're large. And I'm looking for images with nice varieties of color and texture, like this book cover, or this, or this, an illustration from the book, right? So I'm going to open that just like I did with the line art, open the image in a new tab, make sure it's pretty good quality. It's good pixel quality, it's just really faint, but I can fix that with image adjustment. So I'm going to save that into my folder. That's one color, but I want you to use more than one. I don't like the toxicity of those greens, so instead I'm going to use this one. Open the image in a new tab. Boom, nice and clear. Okay, move it in. Now, I'm going to go back to Photopea, and I'm going to drag those in. First, I'm going to drag this in. And then I'm going to stretch it while it's still a smart object. And I'm going to stretch it so that the colors and the textures I like completely cover up, like wrapping paper, the design I've made. And I can warp it, and I can flip it, and I can do all kinds of different things. I can just do Edit Free Transform, or the shortcut for that is Option Command T. And I can right click, and I can warp. Get those words out of there. Get those little mice in there. Get rid of those overalls. You know, whatever you like. Okay, now, there's my image. It's completely covered by that. But I'm not just going to settle for one image because I want it to be original. I'm going to layer in another color image. So this is how you can composite with colored pixels. I'm going to make this nice and big. Because I want to change the colors of this, just make it a little bit more dynamic, because it's a pretty desaturated image, I'm going to go ahead and rasterize it. I didn't rasterize the other one because all I did was stretch it. And now I'm going to go to Image Adjustments and Levels. And we know how Levels works with black and white. This is how it works with color. I can brighten the lights. You can see how the colors get more saturated as I lighten and darken. We'll learn a lot more about color adjustments with our first assignment. Now I'm going to do Option Command T, and I'm going to warp it. I'm going to get some of these other colors in there. Something like that. So now here's the magic. Instead of erasing and interlacing these two images to blend them, I'm just going to use opacity. And I'm just going to take away opacity from the one on top and let the one underneath kind of show through. So that's one way. That's pretty interesting. It's like making your own wrapping paper or something that you're going to cut out of to make your image. The other way is to use what are called blending modes. Soft light is a favorite one of mine, but that's too limited. So things like pin light, things like overlay. Some of us have used multiply before to let only the darks come through.